Hey guys, my name is Skye. I have Jen Judd here, and we are going to do a podcast on what we've learned going raw and high raw. I have been raw for 4 years. I saved my life, and Jen has been raw for 6 years, and it completely changed and saved her life. So, welcome, Jen.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here again. I really appreciate you having me on and everything you do. You're like a superhero.
Oh, so are you. I love watching your podcasts and your book and just chatting to you. And I think the message we want to share is like that the lessons we've learned from raw, but raw never looks the same on two people. High raw. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, I agree. I just did a video a couple of weeks, maybe last week, about how there are different kinds of vegan diets. And people, say like, oh, I tried that and it didn't work or something like that. It's the same within raw veganism. And I didn't know that at first. And it definitely could look like a high fruit diet for some people. It could look like sprouts and lots of, seeds and nuts and things like that for somebody else. And for somebody else, it could look like all of that incorporated. It doesn't have to be a one size fits all. And I think you have to start somewhere, though. And I'm glad that I kind of, in a weird way, didn't know a whole lot when I started, because I was, I think, able to listen like to my body and understand, okay, this is working. I only know there's salad. I thought that was all raw food was when I thought about it. So, that salad worked for me for a while. But I think eventually I added back cooked food in at first because I didn't have all the knowledge of what I may have been missing just with having a salad, eventually after my body depleted all its stored nutrients from my other diet. So, I just think you're right. It can look different for everybody. And I've trialed and errored. And that's one of the things we talk about a lot. The reason I love your channel is you're making discoveries and you're sharing them with us, along with awesome recipes, of course.
Yeah, all the recipes. But I love this part where you talk about at the start, you liked it because you didn't know what you were doing. I
Hmm.
had the same experience. I completely had no idea. I couldn't really read, and I'm doing what I wanted. And there is a challenge when you start incorporating information. Are you doing what your body needs, or are you doing what you've read? Did you come to that crossroad as well, where you've gone, oh my God, I feel so amazing with these salads and these foods, and then you start reading, and all of a sudden you're confused?
Absolutely. And you can let other people can get into your head a little bit too, because I don't know if, like, I did feel like I had lost a lot of weight and I didn't have the knowledge to know how to maintain weight with raw food. And not, I just thought, oh, I have to add rice and potatoes back in, like if I need to gain weight. So it was interesting, and that might be another video that we can discuss, because we, like, my whole life I was trying to lose weight, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now I'm trying to gain weight. So I'm like, this is weird, googling how do you gain weight, right? Like, because it was like amazing, because I had found a miracle that healed me, and then I just felt like I was losing, like I had lost too much weight. And part of that was probably my own thought. And then secondly, I thought other people were like, oh, you've lost a lot of weight. Are you okay? That type of thing. And I didn't allow my body to like regenerate, I guess, to get to a point where it was like the raw food wasn't continuing to make me lose weight, but also I was only eating like very, very little fat. Like, I'm talking, I would have it really strict to like a half avocado a day. So it was like I was continuing to lose weight, and I'm thinking, well, this raw food worked great, but now I'm like, okay, now how do I maintain? And that's when, like, the easy way out from my old knowledge, I just thought, old meaning my previous life leading up to 42, when I discovered this raw food video, I thought, oh, I know, when I ate like a lot of carbs and potatoes, I was gaining weight. So I went and, like, discovered the Chipotle tacos and all these vegan, like, I added in processed, vegan foods. And eventually I realized that, okay, that's putting on weight, that I don't want. And then I went into whole food plant-based, which, worked really good for a while, but I still didn't feel like I did when I was raw. Like I was seeking that feeling of that lightness, and and that's where I settled on high raw, and then long periods of time of raw. And just recently I'm still making discoveries about my body. And I found that one thing that we don't talk about a lot is our mind. Because while I figured I could add in fruit, avocados, nuts, and seeds, I was maintaining weight on this last time of my journey now with like hormonal issues. That's why I love your content too. I started feeling psychologically not like I had experienced OCD. Unfortunately, not the kind that makes everything really neat, but this was like a different type of OCD with like intrusive thoughts of making sure I have to have control to take care, like, or this will happen to family type thing. And I don't talk about it a whole lot, but I think it's important to share with your listeners that our food also can, play a part in that. And I discovered that when I was eating extra calories and maybe a little bit of denser, more fats and things like that, like healthy fats. And also, like, I added in some cooked, or as my friend John says, heat processed at low temperature beans, and, lentils is one of the things I've added in, and some potatoes that I actually felt a lot like very grounded. And I'm looking for how to do that within raw. But for now, it's really important not to be dogmatic with things, and to want to feel like yourself, because it's all about bringing joy. So why would I deprive myself of this, maybe because I heard, oh, this is going to do this if you eat something cooked. We have all this information clouding us, and I had to really come back to, I love raw food, I love the way it makes me feel, so I'm eating almost all raw food. But if I need that a couple of times a week, and that grounding food, and I'm not,
Mm.
just disintegrating it at high temperatures, eating steamed veggies and things like that. If I need that, I'm not going to deprive myself of it, because the whole thing is to be in joy and to feel good. And so if my body's feeling good, but my mind's not, my hormones are all over the place, and I'm experiencing a little bit of unstableness there, it would be best to incorporate healthy whole foods back into my diet a little bit. And that's been the most recent. And,
Mm.
6 years, you're still making discoveries, And when I saw you recently doing these things, I was like, I have to connect with you, because I'm still doing the same thing. Like at certain points, I was very strict and dogmatic, especially when I ran into the natural hygiene. And I'm like, okay, no, I can't touch anything cooked again. Like I got back to my, like, and then I was like, wait, what are you doing? The point is to help people transition, help them feel good. So that's where, we have to outweigh the good and the bad, I feel like, with things. Obviously, I would never add back into my diet any animal products at all. But within veganism, I can make adjustments and be okay with that now.
It's so important we feel good. Like, what's the point of, I was saying just before, is that you're eating only watermelon, but you're so miserable that you end up depressed and you're making terrible life choices. And also, I will say there's a trauma around anything that makes us feel bad, where the brain can go back and go, I can't do that now. I can't do that now. And when you can find balance and joy, and you're not harming yourself here. We're talking some potatoes and lentils. And if it's too much and you need to pull back, it sounds like you're listening. But what's interesting is about how you had this mindset to lose weight. And then what happens to the mind when you need to gain weight? That can even be a problem, right? Is you're
Mhm.
trying to grasp how you do that. And then you start doing that. How did that feel when you were able to gain weight? How did that make you feel? Because you've gone from like literally wanting to constantly
Yeah,
lose weight. And probably even before you started this diet, your mind was always trying to find a way to lose weight. So it's gone
mhm.
on for years. And then all of a sudden you're in this situation where you're trying to gain weight.
It was very, It was very weird. And I would have been like, I would totally have been that girl that probably would have rolled my eyes at someone telling me I need to gain weight, like, because I'm always trying to lose weight, right? And I'm like, but
Yeah.
then I found it was a real thing. And I thought, this is interesting. And still at that point, I hadn't done my own deep dive into the body, into cell at a cellular level. I hadn't understood. I was listening to what this person said or that person said, without doing one more layer of research. And that's what I always, say. You can also overthink and over research, but it's important when something sparks your attention to understand
Mm.
why. And so I was just like, okay, I know that, people always say potatoes will help you gain weight or whatever, and then I would listen to a few videos and then I would be like, okay, that's law. That's what I have to do. But when I found out, this is all a big intertwined system. Our body is amazing. It's trying to keep us alive. It's trying to heal us in a sense, or, detox out the toxins, and it's trying to absorb nutrients, and then it's eliminating it. And the easier I can make that on myself within these, guidelines of, at that point, after about 6 months, it became like I would never touch animal products for ethical reasons. So then it became okay. And then I found it's actually healthier because of studying the digestive system. Like when I started researching holistic health and how the body works, I find that so important to do because you start to see the why behind things and make choices based on that rather than, John said to do this, or, this person that's in his 20s said to do this but may not be experiencing hormones like I am, so we have deficiencies, we have things that are, like traumas and things that we've grew up, different cultural values that we have to incorporate. So it's so important to know it's not a gray area. Like, don't I wouldn't just say, oh, he said don't take a supplement, so I'm not going to. It's very important that you research that on your own. And if you need a supplement, if you're feeling this deficiency, it's very important that you do that, because you're not coming from this clean diet that, that you've been born raw vegan, basically. Like, we've all come from somewhere, and we may at certain points in life, depending on our environment, need certain nutrients, and we have to make sure, I think, that we're getting them, too, is another thing I think is important. I'm not sure where I went on a tangent, what you asked, but I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm actually wanting to jump on the hormone part of what you're talking about, because you keep bringing up that you need to look after your hormones and balance them. Otherwise, you're getting things like intrusive thoughts. Can you talk a little bit about what happens with your hormones?
Yeah, like I don't know exactly if that is my hormones, but I know that when it became a problem for me, I'd never experienced anything like this in my life. And I was, I would say about 45, 45 and a half.
Sure.
We had just experienced the pandemic, which there was a lot of fear in my mind then, based on, like, I don't want anybody around me to be hurt, or, I'm scared to go out here, or, you know what I mean? I don't know if it was the combination of the hormones and then facing death like that for people around me. And, like, my mom had a couple of health scares, and my sister, she, in that period of time, had brain surgery because of seizures and things. And I feel like, from looking back on it, I had lost my grandmother at a young age. I think all that just flooded me, along with maybe me not being able to keep control of it, as like I did as a careless, more or less, like, my 30s. I was like, yeah, everything's going to be okay. I've always been very laid back. So this was like a weird switch, almost like I'm like, what was happening here? You know what I mean? Am I like lose? Like, I don't know what's, I'm not feeling like myself. And the good thing was, like, when I went back completely, like back to raw foods and fruits, I did feel like better, but I also still didn't, there was still something missing. I couldn't get control of that. And I tried, like, magnesium, we were just talking about that. I was going to say, I actually feel like magnesium could be helpful for that. But like, I tried these different what is it? L-theanine, I think, is one of
Yep.
them. Like, I was trying all these different substances. At one point, I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem healthy. I don't even like taking capsules. I don't really want to take a lot of medication or anything. I didn't want to see a doctor and go in the medical industry because I knew they may put me on, medication. I've been in the area here long enough to hear people's healing stories, and that I didn't want to go that route. So I was like,
Yep.
I have to be able to heal this with food. And it over time I was able to really just get my watch a lot of content from like a guy named Mark Freeman. He really helped to help you understand how to take your thoughts and lean into what you want to do. And there was a lot of good things within that. I would definitely recommend his channels. Everybody Has a Brain, and I really love his approach. But during that whole process, it was like got better, but until just recently, it happened to be like just by mistake. I just decided one day, I was like, not, my tooth was hurting. I think it was right after we talked one time. I remember the interview, my gland, my tooth was
Yeah.
bothering me. And it was like, I need some soft food. And I've always been comforted by potatoes, mashed potatoes. And I got, beans, and I was making smoothies with my salads. And I just noticed by mistake, I'm like, I'm actually kind of feeling like my old self, but I don't want to take a turn and, you know, I don't want to not eat raw food, because I also have done that in the past and I felt terrible and my feet were swelling and I felt bloated. So I just like, wait, I can do this happy medium. I eat all my raw foods all day, and then maybe some steamed potatoes or sweet potato and lentils at night, and cabbage or whatever. And I'm like, and then I found this balance, and I'm like so excited, because it's like, if I had really been, so, and I still may find a way to do that all within raw, but that's just the way my, journey went. And I'm like, don't be so dogmatic that you won't touch any cooked food, because we can get ourselves really scared of it too. And I know that it gives an immune response. I'm sure it's not the pristine diet I should have, but for me right now at this place in my life, I want to feel good and want to be happy, and I want to feel like myself. So
I
that's
think I think it's good that you've listened to your body. The one thing I hope and wish people to do is listen to their body. And
Mhm,
as you said, you seem to be doing better now. What I noticed is, you talk about teeth. I noticed my teeth start to get sore when there's some sort of generalized inflammation in my body. There's
mhm,
just points that get sore. And I have noticed I need to have things more like cauliflower with a bit of salt, or some, like, what I would call gritty, mineralized vegetables,
mhm.
because I think the acidity of even things like cucumber, which are quite watery, started to wear away, this is my experience, at my teeth. And I
Mhm.
need to go into like literally crunching things for a while, and then all the pain will go. Now, this isn't cooked food, but
Right.
I feel better. I feel more grounded. And as soon as winter comes, which I've got now, is I start doing veggies. Like in summer, much more fruits,
Mhm.
and although veggies have like a really high water content, it's harder to pull the water out, the body to pull the water out. I think that's the difference. But I just want those veggies through winter. But I have noticed I thrive and do better listening to my body. And as you said, if you get this calling where something's not working and you want to research it, learn about it, what you're called to, but still try it on your body. Don't take everything you read as gospel,
Mhm.
because each person who I see thriving has carved their own way. Their own way. A lot of people are high raw, and that works really well. But usually they've come through raw, and then they start making decisions as to what's working. How are your thoughts going now? Now you're eating this way, with these OCD and intrusive thoughts.
I'm feeling really good, and I think that through periods of time when I've added in like more omegas and content like that, I have felt this also like this little rejuvenation of that. So maybe I think part of it was I wasn't eating enough fats, but I also don't want to eat too many fats, because it also can create inflammation. So that's why I kind of found another way to add, and I still do like a lot of sprouts, and I think I was really like dead set on like I want to be a fruitarian at
Yeah.
one point, and I love fruit and I still eat a lot of it, but I also have found that for me when I added my salad back in, and I think we talk about mindset. One of the things that's like bothering me is I think we want things sometimes to be easy and black and white. And I'm like, when I went to raw food, I felt so good. And all these things, my back pain went away, as we talked about on the last one. No more seasonal allergies, and no more, a weight that I've, been able to keep off, give or take, a few pounds here and there. But I'm like, it's almost like a fear behind it, because I don't want any of those things to come back. And, the fact that I've been on cooked food, like, and saw things do that, I think that can be a little bit scary too. But I think it also has to do with the temperature of cooking. Is something that I've learned, that like dehydrating or cooking at a very low temperature is best for my body too, rather than baking, for example. So I think we don't even realize how important that can be to, realize that we have a lot of things out there now. We have a lot of research. And while there's an underlying, I feel like, digestive system, I think we were talking about this once, there is, I know from looking at comparative anatomy, this is like the frugivore is where I feel like it's so clear to me, based on this is where we're supposed to be. But again, within that, we have to make sure that we are, feeding our body what it needs, and our mind, I'm realizing, as
Yeah.
later in life. And maybe I'm not the same 42-year-old that I was able to eat that one salad a day and be okay. Maybe I can be that again. But for now, at this season, this is where, I've landed. And I would say don't be afraid to do that. At least that's what my experience has been.
Well, I mean, even with the frugivore diet, is we aren't living outside
Mhm.
amongst lots and lots of fruits, and we're not grounded all day. An animal who is unwell will seek out usually some sort of bitter green, very specific. Um, and what if we are all sick? And I think to some degree we are. That's why we go to this diet, and we're trying to seek out these levels. And it's close to what we could call fruit, but there's different levels of it, veggies and greens, nuts and seeds. And I even believe randomly, if we're living out in the wild, if people got very deficient, they would pick up fallen eggs, might have fallen out of a basket. I
Mhm.
think we would have used what was around us. Now, put us in this situation, we're not able to tell as much what we need. So I think the way we do is still very visual. We see someone on Instagram post a picture or do a great talk, and we feel connected to it somehow. But sometimes I think we might overdo it or underdo it or take it the wrong way. We might cook the spinach instead of eating it raw, or we might have
Mhm.
too much of it, or we might try a supplement and it doesn't work. But the principle would still be the frugivore principle, but we are trying to apply that to a modern world. And I do believe, like when I look at my diet and people's diets, is my diet has changed so much. I first went raw, and I was doing like veggies, greens, a little bit of sauerkraut, a few nuts and seeds, and a few pieces of fruit. And then I read things and started to get very high into fruit. And that's when I got very sick and feel like I wasn't completely listening. And I've
Mhm.
actually come back now to more of what I did originally, but probably not as much fat, because I was trying to gain weight at the start. But it's been I appreciate all of it, because there's so much knowledge. Even like, as you said, you tried eating Chipotle or too much cooked food. Don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just more knowledge for your system to know. So when you think of potatoes, you'll know you can have a certain amount, but not a huge amount. And only you know that. So I always think like it's being a frugivore, listening to your body, and let your journey unfold. Never be hard on yourself, because you don't want those acidic brain patterns. You don't want to look at food and feel very distressed. And a lot of us come into this lifestyle from trauma. So we're very scared to eat a potato, or like even me, because at the start I'd eat raw and get up, I'd have just steamed vegetables and couldn't function. And so
Mm-hmm.
I in that space now, and I think a lot of people still do that. But if you get to a safe space and you want to try some lentils, it's your journey. You know, you're not a bad person. You're just going to learn how that feels. We're not talking about chemicals or horrible things here. We're talking about a couple lentils or
Right.
yeah.
So
So
funny you can get yourself to that level of your journey where one thing that someone else would think, oh my gosh, I ate so healthy today, right? And then on
yes.
another level of your journey, they're like, what did you just say? Like after I just ate a potato, like somewhat, right? Like,
Yes,
but
I
it's
have
hard,
seen.
to like you go through these phases and you realize like, okay, yeah, let me pull out the broad spectrum of this here. What did I just really do, right? I didn't go rob a bank. I ate a lentil.
Well, I remember when I went raw, I literally thought I was a superhero because I was eating healthier than the healthiest I ever thought I could eat. And
Yeah,
that mindset, I think, really helped me. Like, because every day I could do no wrong. I was like, I'm celery and carrot. There's no even cooking on it. There's a little bit of lemon juice and salt. Who can do this? Nobody. And I've come from this sick lifestyle. And then to think that if I ate a Buddha bowl, which is, you know, some falafels and maybe some seaweed salad and some coleslaw or whatever, that would be like bad food. Whereas the
yeah,
old mindset would be like, that's the healthiest thing in a health store's menu. Yet
right.
we what we this level, but then also we bring our old baggage into our new reality. So we into this new reality with all these new foods and there's no a lot of trauma goes because there's like this new reality. Then we find as humans we bring our old patterns into it. And that is where I feel the battle comes. And that's why I feel like people get into raw foods and they think they've found heaven. But then
Mm-hmm.
all the things that problems they used to have at a different level, not as traumatic and not as harsh, you will still have to process. And I think a lot of people get a lot of trauma around that, as in like, this diet doesn't work. This isn't for me. I now need meat. Whereas you can't just use raw food to escape. You have to still process all your bad patterns and anything that is unresolved, but you get to do it in what I call a light realm, because that's what I think high raw and raw does.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it doesn't mean the diet's wrong.
Right.
Because I think that's really important. What's your experience with that? Because everyone says there's this 2 year like period, around 2 years. Some people it's 1 year, some people it's 4 years, where it's like you're in heaven, but then reality comes in. And I'm actually grateful that I'm on the raw foods while I do processing, because it makes it easier.
Yes, definitely.
Can I
I've
hit the
definitely.
button, but I'm about to lose my phone. Can I get the
Oh,
charger?
oh yes, you can.
Okay.
It's over there plugged in. You need me to get
I'll
it?
come grab it.
Okay. Sorry, charger issues
It's all right.
between the two. Sorry about that. Um, but I was just thinking that, that's why I never say this is what I'm eating and this is set in stone, because from the very first day I even tried the raw diet, my salad was lettuce, tomato, cucumber, and maybe a few other things. And it got bigger and bigger because as I listened to, I need this. Oh, look at this. The sprouts do this for you. Let me add those. And the cucumber do this. Or now avocado. Oh, I'm supposed to have a healthy fat. Let me add that in. And then also, then later on down the line, you might find that doesn't, work well with you within even the raw food diet. So I don't like to just say this is how I'm eating, because I've watched it like you change throughout, where I ate only salads. Then I went and realized, no, this isn't the way to go with all the bread and processed food, even though it was all vegan. And so I went back to fully raw because I was like, I'm going back to what works. And then I realized, okay, I'm losing weight again. I had to add fruit, and a little bit more healthy fats. And then I felt good. And then you have people that say, well, it may, hi, Dawn.
Hello, everybody.
Oh my God.
It may, be detox, and maybe I just need to lose the weight and then I'll gain it back. Then you start getting like lots of information and forget to listen to your body and allow it to unfold how you want it to, and can maintain your regular, like you said, your human life, and as close to nature as you can, and realizing this holistic approach of I need sunlight. That's another thing. I'm inside a lot working, so I realized I need to get out. So it wasn't just the foods, but it's also just taking an approach of trial and error, but not running to what you came from, because it's like, oh, now I need to go back to, like you said, to meat. Because I think of all the things that we've figured out, is always that, at least where I've come to, is raw food is life. It is the best thing for my body. It healed me. I will never not eat a majority of raw food. Like, I already know that because I've done it back and forth now enough times to know that raw food was the key to my feeling good and my body running properly. But I also know that now I can do things that aren't as dogmatic. If I want to take multivitamin for women, and I want to take, to get the magnesium, selenium, all that, and I want to take the daily greens, powder, because that actually will help me if there's anything missing in my diet. Like, I've opened myself up to not being so one way or another. And will I maybe, 2 years from now, I'm like out of, I'm 50 or something, and I'm feeling like, what, I want to do fully raw. Maybe a month from now, I might do that and try to, I might add just some more chia seeds and fats to see if that maintains what I'm looking for, this balance. And it's like, I'm not going to, we can't be afraid to do that, but we also have to know that everything's not wrong that you're doing. You may just need to add or subtract something that's not working for you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong, because it's not. And I think we can hear all the negative benefits, I think, of certain foods for someone else, and realize, if we can stay as close to eating fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds as possible within that confines, you're usually okay, right? Like, you're not doing anything wrong if you ate 10 walnuts and your goal was 4, because that was the don't watch those macros so close that you are making yourself stressed out, because this is to de-stress us. I've felt lighter and better. So, like, don't let yourself get to that point and get so strict that you're now like just not happy.
That's right. There's also that allergy aspect where over time people are like, now I'm reacting to, and it's usually higher histamine foods. But any food, I used to eat a lot of avocado, now I can't eat it. A lot of banana, now I can't eat it. We have to remember how the body works. Is the body actually wants to protect you from everything, including the food you eat. Basically, we heal by getting out of the body's way. So by cycling, or our body wanting different foods at different times, it stops it building like that resistance, like that repelling of food, which is very natural. It's very protective. The body wants to protect us from everything external. So, over time, it's going to build up this way of not tolerating foods as well. And also, the microbiome builds so much nutrition for us. So we're like feeding those trillions of bacteria in the gut, in the body. And we want to make sure everyone's being fed. We're getting the right bacteria to make hydrogen, nitrogen, all things that the body needs. It's not as simple as I need iron, therefore I eat spinach. You could be low in magnesium or vitamin C, but vitamin B12. It's really important, I think. This is what I say to people, is what you're craving has a message.
Oh, I meant to say something earlier about that when you're done.
Yeah, any food, if you're like eating all fruit, but all you can think about is carrots. I don't know exactly what's in it, I could say beta carotene, but you don't know. There's something your body has stored in your mind that it needs. And I always feel this is why, if you don't start listening to the first messages, you'll end up in a situation where, just say you just keep eating only 2 types of fruit or whatever, where you do end up eating something that's not right for you, that you never wanted to go back to, that makes you sick. But it's because your body will send you such a strong message. Like, you'll literally feel like you're going to die unless you eat something. So you're better off to constantly listen to the light tickling feedback of carrots or a few extra walnuts. And, you know, and in that sense, you're not just giving your body nutrition, you're honoring this connection. We are meant to be eating because we need the food, not eating because we read a book that says you should just eat this way. So I think that's really important, to listen to your cravings, because they're basically telling you what your body needs.
Very true. Yes. I was thinking about a lot of people say that they're trying to do all fruit, let's just say, right? But they're craving salt. Like, I need something salty at night, and we can think, and it could be, right? You're having a craving because of your gut biome. But if you've been raw for a while and you start craving things that are salty, I read that in like my research, because Dawn said that a lot. She would say, like, she wants to be just fruit, but she wants, is craving, she'll eat like nuts, like salted nuts and things like that. And I'm like, she drinks like a lot of water, because we can also have to be careful with like these guidelines. Like, if you're eating a water rich diet and somebody's telling you to drink 8 to 16 glasses or whatever that is, that normal, how they say you should have 8 glasses of water a day, those are usually for guidelines for people who are eating a high saturated fat, like standard diet, standard American or standard Western type diet, where it's like, the normal way that everybody tends to be eating, with a lot of fast food. And not everybody, but let's just say a majority of people are eating salt in their diet and not a lot of potassium. So I read about the sodium potassium pump. So if she's eating all fruits and vegetables, and that's not her normal, and then all of a sudden she's drinking all this water, she's probably really needing salt. And she's thinking, oh, this is just some kind of craving because I ate too many potato chips in my previous diet and I need salt. But it's like, that's what, like you said, whatever's in front of us is what you're going to get. So if she's at the store and grabs a bag of chips, she's like, I've ruined my diet, but it's like, interesting, isn't it? Like, you really may have been craving salt. I was telling her you may need to add some salt rich, vegetables in.
Yeah, well, I did no salt for 2 years. And I feel like I ruined my gut, because my body still was going to get at the salt however it needed to do it. So it was eating excessive amounts of food. Whereas now I can eat normal amounts of food with a little bit of salt, and I'm not forcing in huge amounts of food. Plus, the food is water, and water you have to urinate out, and the kidneys need potassium, calcium, salt. They need salt. So every time you drink water, you're pulling more salt from the body. Because a lot of people like get salt cravings, and they say things like, well, how you're not hydrated enough. Well, you're going to pull more salt, and then just say I need a certain amount of salt. Even if people say have celery juice, you need something like 7 or 8 heads of celery, but you need to dry it before you eat it, because if you eat it with the fluid, you're just going to pee the salt you eat back out.
Right.
So, but I think we have to learn, but we have to also listen and try. It took me a while to get salt back in. It was actually a regret of letting go of it, because I kept having issues trying to put it back in. Having mast cell activation syndrome, anything and everything can get set off. And I know a lot of people are like, well, that means the body doesn't want it. And it's kind of like saying, well, when you first eat fruit, sometimes I actually bring up fruit because I don't have a stomach. I get I have dumping syndrome and bring it back up. So I think that's not, well, I don't know if that's it, but at the start I really struggled to eat any fruit. Is that saying that we're not supposed to have fruit? And then now I salt. I think you can struggle at any time with any food, but keeping the body in balance is key to spiritual, mental, and physical health. The more my body is in balance, the longer it's in balance, the better I do in all areas of life. As soon as I push myself, and I'll do it in small bursts. I've done like 3 weeks on grapes, or I did 2 years pretty high fruit. But I never did and I did after shingles, I did 46 days on juice, but then it went to 80. I tried to eat and it didn't work. But I've really paid for that afterwards. I'm going to do a live eventually on it, as to what happened when I just couldn't get off, juice, because that was another issue. So what I have learned is finding my balance is just the key to health, like for
Mhm.
me, whatever that looks like. For me, it's mostly raw foods. It's not a huge amount of like other things like spices and stuff. It's like raw foods and a bit of salt. That does best. But then when I make a recipe and I have other things in it, that's to kind of, I don't know, it settles a comfort that's in me that I want to experience, like what it's that excitement of like a piece of pizza or something. But
Mhm.
most days I'm kind of eating just very, most of the day it's very simple. It's not very extravagant, but that's so I keep my balance.
Mhm. That makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people want to put themselves on a very strict amount of food. But I'll have days, and like if your body possibly it's so smart, if it's trying to heal something, I may have days where I don't eat like until like I've only had a couple of grapefruits today. And some people may say, well, I need to, and maybe if people are on medication, I just want to, put that out there. If you're, under doctor's care or something, you can, follow what they're saying as far as the eating window. But like for me, I think our body is very smart. And if it doesn't want a lot of food one day, I just won't eat. I won't force it. And then also I have days where I'm eating everything and I'm like, what is happening here? Like I'm just constantly eating. And it's just I just allow my body to listen to it instead of putting it on a strict, like I can only have, this amount of a cup of lettuce or whatever it is. Obviously I would never just have a cup of lettuce, right? I love lettuce, but anyway, like I just won't map out my food. And I think that's where diets can be like people can not ever be able to achieve a diet that helps them lose weight because there is a measured out amount of stuff and they're miserable because their body that in the beginning they might be okay with it because like we've got these our stored fat and things, but at some point your body is saying, hey, I'm starving and I want more food, and you're thinking this diet's not for me, so you go back to your other diet instead of just making adjustments within it. I think is what has
Mm.
happened with a lot of people with that portion control. Because I mean, if you don't feel good when you eat like too much, sometimes it can be something you're eating because you're like watching TV. I understand that. But I mean, legitimately listening to your body and eating until full, because I've found when I eat fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and now even, adding in other things, as long as I'm within those confines, it's very difficult to really overdo it if your body's seeking it. I don't know what you've found.
Yeah, I agree. It is hard to overeat, but I think the only time that I get into that sort of state is when I've pushed myself the wrong way. So the
Mhm.
only like so when I first did raw and I ate whatever I wanted in abundance, I never really had any cravings. The only first cravings I got were when I did 3 weeks on grapes. I remember coming off that and all I wanted was pizza. And I had not thought of cooked food. And I notice anytime I push my body will push back. And so that's why I always say to people is, you know, stay in balance, stay with what you can do, stay with what's attainable. Because also when you go on a diet, there's a novelty that, you're going to eat restricted and lose weight. So you're very excited because you're going to be skinny. But that you can't hold on to that. What you can hold on to is a lifestyle you love. That's why when I went raw, I knew from past experiences that I never stayed on diets, not that they yielded the results of this. My whole goal was how do I make this lovable? And that's where my recipes come in. That's where I
Mhm.
found out all the raw foods that you can have. Find out all of them from like seaweeds to nuts and seeds to sprouts to fermented foods. Like know what you can have. If you fall in love with something, you want to go back to it. If
Mhm.
you do it because you want a result, and the process is just horrid,
Mhm.
it's your life. It's like saying, I want horrid life. I want horrid life. I don't want to keep saying that. I don't want to manifest that.
Right.
But you say, I love this recipe. I love going to the farmers markets. I love that I have energy to go running. I love that I get up and have glowing skin. If you keep seeing all these things and love them, you can't help not want to stay in it. But
Exactly.
if you get to dinner time, you're like, I don't want to go too negative, but I don't like this. And the next day you feel like crap and you need more energy and you don't have it. I don't like this. Is you traumatize yourself. So you have to pull out. So the biggest thing I say is, if you're going to start doing like plant-based, whole foods, high raw or raw, find a little slot to start that you love. If you go into it and do not like it, I promise you will have, maybe not straight away, some sort of trauma response later on, whether it's adverse to it or your memory to something. You're better to sit in love every space. A huge part of what I decided when I healed was there was going to be no more of the negativity. Like, I was choosing love. And so when I got well, and all these people are doing this like detox experience where you're supposed to go years where you don't feel good, my brain could not wrap around it, because I felt like that's where I came from. Every choice I made in my life had made me feel terrible. And maybe I've done it slower. Maybe that's what people think. If that's the case, I don't care, because I've always sat in love. And if, as I said, if I do juicing or if I do grapes, as soon as it starts to turn negative, I can't stay there, because that is past Skye, who I let go of. So it's like finding balance, find your space of love what you do, because that's what you'll come back to.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think that's one of the things that actually worked so good for me in the beginning of this experience. And what I had to remember to continue to go back to is, because we don't leave something alone if we don't have something else to walk towards. Like, I was mentioning this on a post the other day, like when we say we're going to start walking, we don't say we're going to give up couch or just stop sitting ever. We start walking, and then we feel that momentum, and we're like, I'm feeling good, I want to do that again. We're having fun, we're out in the elements. So you're like, I'm going to do it on my lunch, I'm going to do it, before dinner now, because you want to do it, you want to experience it. And the same thing with food. I went out and I didn't know really anything about what a raw food diet was. I didn't, I just said, oh, I remember I love blueberries, I love these couple of, this kind of nuts, and it says here I can have them because they're raw. And then I had all my favorite, veggie fruits, and like cucumbers, tomatoes, lettuce. I remember, I like carrots. And then I, learned that I didn't like avocados, but I would drown them in the little dressing that I had. And then eventually now I eat them like just by themselves, right? Like, so your taste has changed. There's an adjustment period, but for the start, find what you like. That's so important. You might add recipes on later, but don't make it complicated. If in the beginning, just, find something you really enjoy and do it. Because you're right. That's why we've probably stuck with this so long, because we fell in love with raw foods. We are, learning about them, and understanding how they react with our body. And it's not something that should be miserable. There are, times when I have gone, raw, and maybe my body is like, oh, something will happen, and it'll be like, oh, that's just because you're changing your gut biome. I'm not saying that something, might not feel weird every now and then in your stomach when you completely change your diet. But to your point, it's not supposed to be in my opinion, a lifelong detox of miserable, because you're going to move back to where you were from it. And it doesn't always mean you need to go back to your older unhealthy diet. Or, for me, definitely, ethically, I choose not to eat animals. And everything I've learned, I realize that I can get all my nutrients without them. And that might not be, the case for others. I understand that, but hi Tessa, I saw you in the comments.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, someone said to me, I want to start raw, how do I do it? I would say, go to your fruit market and get all your favorite foods. Like, that's, don't get the ones you don't like. Get the blueberries. For me, I loved mango, avocado, I loved chili, lime, and then I loved noodles. So I saw that you could just make them from carrot or zucchini. And I started there. Start there. And then also I knew I could go to the health food aisle and get a few nuts and seeds. At the start, I loved cashews, almonds, hemp. I remember darker, which I used in one of my recipes this week. Add them all in and see what you've got. Like, I've already got there like a cashew, noodle, mango, avocado, chili, lime, darker. Yum, I'm getting hungry. Like, if you start with all the foods you love, you will fall in love with it. And if you start to notice, oh, I don't want it as fatty, you just pull back a bit on the avocado or the nuts. Or you might want more hydration someday. I'm going to do more cucumbers and blueberries and apples. But make sure you pick. It's about falling in love with yourself and your life and your thoughts and your walks and your time in the sunshine. And the more you fall in love with it, your whole life just becomes love. So
Love that. And like you're in the joy of maybe another nostalgic moment. Because I think one of the things when people move to raw food, there's a lot of emotional attachment to food. Even when you go vegan, for example, if you're come into it just I don't want to eat animal products, but that I don't want to eat this, I don't want to eat that. That's not the way to love something. We understand that that's there, but like that was very little about what I ever thought about when I started really enjoying how I was feeling. And the raw food, it was more about look up this and figure out why the cucumber was making me feel so good, instead of I can't have this, I can't have this, because your mind will get stuck on what you can't have and you'll never be able to walk forward to it. Like maybe if you had watermelon as a kid, or
yes,
like you said, grapes, you're feeling that nostalgia of that now. And
yeah.
now when you develop, like now 6 years, I can be nostalgic about that first big salad I had, and recreate that one night, because now I've made new memories in my raw life,
Yes,
so
that's what
it's
it's about. I remember the first year when I came up on my phone, this occurred a year ago. And for the first time, my whole body was flooded with joy. So usually photos came up, I was very sick and I just had dread or usually a dissociation, not really attached to that was me because it was just all so traumatizing. And these happy salads came up and I have the nostalgia. Like when I look back at what I accomplished and made, and how much joy it brought me and how good I felt. Those photos from back then are like just amazing. Like what a human can accomplish when they're in their like darkest hour, that we can still see light. And that light to me was in nature and food. Um, and I think that's why it sticks with me so hard, why I love the raw foods, why I love recipes, why I love doing podcasts, because it just brings me so this the food to me was when I was so broken, I could put light energy inside of something which was so dark. And it drew me more to the light outside, the light in people, the light in all I've chosen to do. But I still like to see those as little light sun packages, like the raw foods, little sunlight packages that I get to decorate and move and put inside myself. And then what everybody sees is the combination of these light packages from source and my soul. And that is what you guys see every day. And if I put something in that I saw as negative and dead and wasn't joy, that was probably why I was half dead, almost dead. And so it really is that simple. When, especially like when you're eating, like when you first go on it, you see everything so simply, like that. It's just you eat good, you get good. It's
yeah.
like, how did I think it was so complex?
I know. I think I said it like it was so simple that you don't think of it or you don't go for it, because it's like you're trying to do all these complicated things. Like I think one of the things we talked about in the last one was how I always took something as, oh, my back hurts, I have constant chronic pain, what medicine do I need, what medicine do I need? And then I really felt that's where I came, like I call it a miracle, because I had no idea that what I was eating. And I think a lot of people are like this. It may sound, silly, but I didn't know that what I was eating could affect pain, that it could affect necessarily the allergies, because it wasn't what I was eating that was creating the allergy. I thought it was pollen, and that's just what was triggering it. So we have to realize sometimes we're looking at the wrong culprit, and yet instead of me saying I think that documentary, oh, that's what I was going to say. Also, if you're having trouble, like you're struggling a little bit, reconnect with that moment in the beginning. Like you said, go back to those memories, whether they're on Facebook, go to that book that you read that got you excited, go to that documentary, go reconnect with a group that you were in at that time, or people. Like I feel like the first day of kindergarten as a kid or something, when you first like go there, or something that has a good memory. That's exactly what I revisit, like at times when, just I'll just go watch that first documentary, and it, like, all those feelings flood back of that excitement. And that first month when I realized, oh my goodness, I don't feel back pain for the first time in 18 years. Like,
Yeah.
30 days of that, obviously I was on to something, but you still think it's like a fluke until you keep doing it. And like, I'm like, 6 years. All right. So this is good. None of that stuff is coming back, as long as I continue on my, on my path of really realizing it's as simple as whole foods and listening to your body and proper nutrients that you need. Like, it can be that easy, and it might not be that same journey for you, that time frame, but it's so many people I've talked to now, including yourself, that this has really, been something that I think, like you said, that's why we do this, because it's like, if you're out there and you're struggling, even if you're already raw and you're struggling to, like, maybe stay raw, or whatever the case is, or if you're still eating your standard diet, that this is an option for you. And there's a way to do it that you can be gentle with yourself, not so, harsh, and just enjoy it.
That's right. And I think it's fall in love with raw, however that looks like. Guys, we fell in love with it. It changed our life. And the message today is to fall in love with it. Start with the things you love, do the things that you like, and look for the good in it, because that's what you're going to do, is change your life with raw. So thank you so much. I loved so much talking to you. There's a few messages here. Tessa says, hey. And then Dennis had a few messages just saying he does a raw food diet, but he also has raw animal products. And yeah, if you have any topics you'd like Jen and I to cover, just let us know.
Oh, I'd love to. I think answering questions and hearing from people who were raw is one of the things that made me successful, along with my own research. And so thank you, Skye, for everything you do in this space. It's so amazing. You're helping people find those nostalgic foods and joy in their diet with raw food by, your mixology. I don't know what I would call it.
I like that
You're like a food
mixology.
chemist. You're so good, right?
Oh, thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.
Hi, everyone.